Thank you for this opportunity to share with you my personal journey from the Warsaw Ghetto to the struggle for animal rights. I was 5 years old on September 1st, 1939, when the Nazi armies invaded Poland. About 6 months later, we and about 450,000 other Jews in Warsaw and some of the surrounding areas were ordered to move into the Jewish section of Warsaw under penalty of death. By November 16, 1940, the walls were joined and the streets were blocked and the Warsaw Ghetto was burned. In mid-1942, roughly summer and fall of 1942, the Nazis began implementation of what they called Operation Reinhard, and what we today refer to as the final solution. Between July and September, they dragged several 100,000 of Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto to the death camps of Treblinka and Auschwitz. It is estimated that nearly 1 million Jews were exterminated in Treblinka and many more in Auschwitz. They left behind only piles of suitcases, shoes, glasses, hair, and charred bones. Silent memorials to the thousands of sentient living beings who were no more.
So once my life was no longer in danger, I was facing a couple of really searing questions. Why was I allowed to live when so many other good people were not? And what could I do to repay the debt? This bothered me for a number of years. Until 1972, I was working for an environmental consulting firm, and they sent me to a Midwestern slaughterhouse, and I suddenly came across piles of hearts and lungs and heads and hooves and discarded body parts. My first reaction was to recoil in horror, as most people would, but very quickly I made the association with the piles of body parts I saw in Auschwitz, the use of cattle cars to transport people to the gas chambers, the crowding in wood containers of the victims, the arbitrary designation of who lives and who dies. And this is when I resolved to devote the rest of my life to fighting the oppression of animals raised for food. Oppression begins when you first tell a child that the dog on his couch is to be cherished and loved and appreciated, and the pig on his plate is to be abused and killed and dismembered and eaten for food. Of course, I feel much more strongly about the Holocaust than about any other tragedy, because the Holocaust involved my own people. But again, in the moral universe, it really shouldn't matter who the victims are. We need to get to the source. We need to get to the oppressive mindset and stop that. That's the solution. If we can convince people that living beings should not be oppressed, then we will, in effect, have stopped all oppression. So when I made this decision, a number of well-meaning friends, they would say, "Alex, why animals when so many human problems remain unresolved?" Because animals are the most vulnerable, the most defenseless living beings on Earth. Animals share many of the same feelings that we have. They experience affection, joy, sadness, fear, and pain. Perhaps the most important reason that I have decided to work on farm animal oppression is because I can have the awesome power of sparing each year about 100 land and aquatic animals from terrible abuse and death. And if I can persuade just one other person to join me in this endeavor, I will have doubled my awesome power.
Every time we shop for food, we literally make a choice between subsidizing life or subsidizing death. We can choose animal products with their deadly impacts on animals, on our health and our environment, or we can choose healthy, life-affirming foods. Those of you who wonder about protein, plants offer a huge selection of proteins. I want to thank you again for this opportunity to share my journey from the Warsaw Ghetto to my personal struggle for animal rights and veganism. And I hope that you will all join me if you have not already. Thank you.